Now, the culture of recognition gets built when we know the behavior that we want to focus on.
But recognition is something that should be spoken about. So it's not just the person who's getting recognized, who's getting impacted, or who's seeing what it is all about, but everyone else who's privy to the recognition announcement. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. I'm going to waste as little time as possible because I want to make sure that we get this gentleman's views and perspectives, and we spend most of the time on hearing him. But I'm just going to start with a little bit of a problem statement. The global spend on rewards and recognition programs is $46 billion. $46 billion is significantly larger than the turnover of a lot of large global multinationals. Yet, companies are not seeing effective results from their rewards and recognition programs. In fact, in a global survey that we had done last year, about 60% of organizations said that the impact or the perceived effectiveness of their rewards and recognition programs was at best moderate, going down to extremely low. So why is this happening? Why do we have this kind of a thing happening? And sorry, I went to the wrong slide. Now, what's happening is that there are three fundamental problems as we see them today. The three problems are, one, that the program design is often suboptimal. A lot of times, organizations are continuing with their legacy recognition programs, looking at what other organizations are doing and just copying those practices, which limit the coverage of the program. There's not enough measurement happening. So while we talk about employee engagement, and there are lots of different employee engagement survey tools, a lot of analytics that goes into engagement, there's not enough happening on recognition. And as a result, you don't have benchmarks. And we know how important benchmarks are to know how we're doing, how we can get better. How do we get that necessary time and bandwidth investment from our leaders on recognition programs if we can't show them effective measures, if we can't show them effective benchmarks? So to solve that problem, we looked at creating a new framework, which is what we call the AIRᵉ framework. I'm going to talk very briefly about it. But really what it looks at is that you start with the business strategy and objectives of the organization. What are those desired employee behaviors that we want to drive? And then base the recognition program on that. And again, the model that we're looking at is that you need to make employees aware of what behaviors are important, what behaviors are valued at the organization, in what context those were demonstrated, which we refer to as reinforcement. You need to give people a line of sight into some sort of value, whether it is monetary, whether it is social, whether it is emotional, some sort of value towards which they work and hope to get recognized. You amp up that value by looking at emotional factors. How do you appeal to a person's feelings, which is what we refer to as emotional connect. And most importantly, this is what helps create an entire feeling of being valued for employees, which is what we refer to as appreciation. So from there, we get what we call the AIRE or the AIRᵉ framework. This is based on, again, two fundamental drivers. We're saying recognition programs need to be authentic. People need to believe in them. People need to see them as transparent, as objective. And these programs should also drive necessary impact in terms of getting people to behave in that manner. So we broke up the four themes: appreciation, incentivization, reinforcement, and emotional connect into these two drivers. We came with coverage, which is really who all are you covering in the organization, what employee levels are getting covered. Frequency, how frequently do people get recognized? Is it annual? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? Incentivization, very importantly, it's not just about what we call impetus, which is what is the value or the perceived value, but also very importantly, clarity, knowing this is how one gets recognized in this organization. This is what it takes to get recognized. Reinforcement, which I would probably say is one of the most important levers, which breaks down into specificity. What are those behaviors that are being recognized? You cannot have a laundry list of behaviors and say, oh, every time someone demonstrates one of these, we will recognize them. You need to be very clear that there are a few called out behaviors, and these behaviors link to what is required for the business, which is what we call alignment. And finally, emotional connect, which gets broken down into personalization and delivery. How do we make it more meaningful for people? How do we make sure that we are appealing to their feelings when they are getting this recognition, so that we're amping up that perceived value for them? We looked at then saying, how do we quantify this? How do we actually measure this? How do we benchmark this across organizations? And with that, we developed what is called the AIRE assessment, or the AIR assessment. It's an online questionnaire that you can fill up, takes less than 10 minutes, and it actually gives you a quantitative score on the design of your recognition programs. This, of course, is the score that we see for Tata Communications, 80%. 80% is considered to be a fairly high score. It's what we call the zone of effectiveness. And we'll be talking to Mridul to understand what were the perspectives behind some of the features that they launched in their program. What was the evolution of their program that led them to have such a highly effective program? And then I'm going to try to help contextualize this from the perspective of the AIR framework, so that when we go back, we're able to see how does our own recognition program compare. So you can actually go online, you can do the assessment, you can get a score, a detailed report for your organization. Then you can go back and say, what are these features that are missing in our program? How do we need to relook our programs? So that's the agenda for today. Very quickly, I'm going to walk you through the survey questions and the responses from Tata Communications. This is important because you'll need this context as Mridul starts talking. The first question was, what are the key objectives of your recognition program? And there were three options given. Tata Communications picked all three. First being drive employee engagement, second being increase loyalty and retention, and the third being enhance performance and productivity. Next question is what elements are covered, and what we see very interestingly is that they're doing a mix of both formal thank you, well done notes, which is typically non-monetary appreciation, as well as timely spot awards, which are anytime, anywhere. And finally, they do have monthly, quarterly, and annual awards as well. What's the coverage and frequency? They're covering all employee segments, including contractors, and they're providing year-round recognition. So they're not waiting for a particular time in the year to actually recognize people. How does this program help drive desired employee behaviors through recognition? This is again very interesting. Traditionally, we've thought of recognition coming as an outcome of results demonstrated, but Tata Communications is looking at both results and behaviors. So we're going to dive a little more into that, Mridul, when we come to you. How does the program differentiate differing levels of achievement and demonstration of behaviors? There, they're looking at amping up the monetary value of the awards. They've also got special features in their awards looking at people who are consistently or repeatedly demonstrating those behaviors and doing a certain level of recognition for the fact that you are consistent in what you're doing. How do they make awardees feel special? Of course, there is the financial value of the awards, but in addition to that, they're doing a lot of things which amp up the social and emotional value. Traditionally, as a rewards and recognition platform, it's in my best interest to say that once you have a platform like this, you don't need to do awards events. But I think Partha mentioned this in the morning as well. Nothing beats the face-to-face recognition. Nothing beats doing it one-on-one or in front of a large group. So that adds to the social value. How do you build excitement, drive participation? There's a lot of focus on leadership communication at Tata Communications. There's a lot of focus on internal marketing and branding of the recognition program. How do you ensure that people understand the criteria and the process? Again, it's defined in the program documentation. It's covered as part of new employee orientation. What form of awards? They're doing points, which is of course through the Vantage platform. They're doing company branded merchandise. They're also very heavily focusing on the award messaging. What is the certificate? What is being said about the person when they are getting recognized? Now, the last one, which is very interesting, and we are going to close the session with that, is that we asked organizations to rate on a scale of 1 to 5, how effective do you think this program is? And Tata Communications' response was that in spite of a well-designed program like this, we believe that the effectiveness is still moderate. So again, really looking forward to understanding from you, Mridul, how this works. We can actually do away with the slides now. And I'm going to move on to talking to Mridul. So Mridul, the first question to you is that traditionally organizations have looked at recognition programs as a way of driving performance. In fact, 90% of organizations actually keep up driving performance as one of their key objectives. Why did you look at employee engagement? Why did you look at some of these other factors? What was the thinking behind the recognition program at Tata Communications?
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. Thanks to SHRM and Vantage Circle for inviting me into this important discussion. The topic is very interesting, close to my heart. Now, before I go into detail of the question that you asked, I think everything boils down to a context. It's for the audience also to understand how the organization is evolved, what is the culture that we have tried to build, and thereby why recognition is so very important and critical to us. So we have a rich legacy of 50 plus years as an organization. Some of you may know that this company, Tata Communication, earlier avatar used to be OCI, and then it became VSNL, and then Tata has acquired the company, and globally we acquired 3 or 4 other organizations and reached a stage where we are now a global carrier of 33% of internet traffic across the globe. So that's the size of the organization that we are talking about. This journey from being a PSU, a Navratna PSU, to being a privately held company has been very, very significant for both the group as well as for the company. We look forward with a lot of prospect of faster growth and very exciting time ahead. Being part of a Tata legacy, which has 150 years plus of legacy, in the DNA there are fundamental aspects like recognition, appreciation, and so on and so forth, giving back to the society. So these are all fundamental things. Now, in Tata Communication, the journey of recognition was not new, but we wanted to make it more formal. And this happened when we actually looked at what is our long-term strategy of growth. So we defined the leadership signature behavior for the organization. And the whole need arrived when we thought, how do we make it live? How do you get the behaviors to show up in every transaction that employee does, every interaction that they get into, every process that we run in the organization, and thereby it becomes consistent and repeatable. We didn't look at these 3 objectives as the outcome of the program. What we looked at is how do we build a culture of recognition in the organization, and through that the outcome will be taken care of. So these objectives that we have mentioned here, because the objective of building a culture of recognition was not there, that's why these 3 have been chosen. Otherwise, first to be chosen was the culture of recognition that we wanted to build. Now, the culture of recognition gets built when we know the behavior that we want to focus on, the behavior that will lead to the outcome that we are looking at, and it is clearly personalized from a measurement perspective, and it also drives the employees to know that what gets measured gets done, right? So they are effectively getting motivated by the recognition that happens instantly against the behavior that we want to really focus on. And these behaviors are coming out from the values and the leadership signature drive behavior that you have defined in the organization. Drive in Tata Communication stands for driven, inclusive, responsive, venturing, and ethical. And the behavior that we measure through this program are all linked to this particular acronym that I just shared. So overall, the program completely focuses only on measuring behavior, because we believe that if the behavior is right and it's repeatable, as I said earlier, then the outcomes will automatically become evident. And that's becoming very evident in the organization, because over a period of like 7 to 8 years that we have been focusing on growing the culture within the organization, the results are very encouraging, not just from employee measured statistics like your attrition, ESAT results, NPS and stuff like that, but also the business result, which are very significantly changing over a period of last 5 to 7 years.
Interesting. So, Mridul, you spoke about creating the culture of recognition, and from that I can understand why it was important to include all employee segments in it, because if you're looking at a cultural intervention, it has to be focused, it has to be more broad-based. But tell us more about this balance of year-round recognition as well as having some of these monthly, quarterly, annual awards? How do you make the two programs coexist?
So we work or operate in a ecosystem where it's not just our full-time employees who are contributing to the success of the organization. We have a large base of outsourced manpower who are as much responsible for running the business as the employees themselves. So just to give you an example, when the lockdown happened, we could easily move into a virtual mode of working with 15,000 employees overnight shifting to a virtual mode of working. But being a network service provider, infrastructure service provider company, you needed feet on the street because you have to still manage outages, you have to still manage network being available to other businesses, the banking system, the education system, all of that was running in the network, right? So you needed that. So all our outsourced manpower were responsible to keep this line. So you cannot leave one very critical segment of your employee base out of a recognition program. Now, just to give you an example of how recognition really motivates people, I remember an employee leaving the organization about 5 years back, and he was collecting all his belongings on the last working day. So he left behind quite a few things that were not so important to him on the table, but one thing that he carried was a handwritten note given by the manager to the employee, which was also framed by the person. So I checked with him, what is it that you put so much of value to this handwritten note? The manager is not there in the company anymore, but you still value this. What is so important about this? He said, see, with this recognition, I got some award. I don't remember the value of the award, but I remember the emotion, the sentiment attached to this particular note that my manager gave. And this note is always going to remain with me wherever I go. So that's the kind of value that people put onto appreciation and recognition. It has to be timely. It has to be justifiable for the contribution that has been made. And the transparency element is very critical because whatever you do for an employee is visible to everyone. That's the system that we implemented. You give an award, immediately it is published in our internal social network. All employees get to know what is it that the award is given for, what behavior has been demonstrated, how does it add value, right? So in this entire journey, we can't leave anybody. And the reason it is available 24/7 through the year for every employee is it has to be instantaneous, right? So the employee should, the moment he gets a gratification, he or she should be in a position to go and recognize. It could be a simple thank you note, it could be a monetary award, it could be something that he does one-on-one. There's a possibility that the employee chooses to send a thank you note one-on-one, right? He doesn't want to publish it to the rest of the organization. And you can also choose to publish it to the rest of the organization. So that's the importance that we place in terms of bringing the whole workforce into the program and also making and building these features which helps in creating a very clear visibility of what the program is all about. What is it trying to drive?
That's amazing, Mridul. I think just to keep all of us engaged as well, we have a few audience questions. So if we could have those sent out, and would love to see the results here. No, sorry, we have an audience poll.
Not a question right now,
we have an audience poll. We'll have 5 minutes at the end and we'll make sure that we get to you. But thank you so much for being awake, being there in the session and having questions to ask. So really appreciate that. So the question is, which of the following is not a form of appreciation? And those of you who have the app, you can actually go into the app and you can use Slido over there. We'd love to see the responses of this group. While we're doing this, I'm going to just pick on what Mridul was talking about how it needs to be across all levels, across all workforce segments. And another very important workforce segment that a lot of us forget about when we're designing programs. Any guesses? One very important segment that typically we don't care too much about when we're designing a recognition program. The senior management and leadership. Don't they need to be appreciated? Don't they need some validation? And very importantly, organizations that have covered their senior levels in the program and their leaders are appreciated by their team members, they understand the power of recognition a lot more. It's about, there used to be that ad, Melody Khao Khud Jaan Jao. So it's about, if I get recognized, then I know how good that is, and then I am more likely to go out and recognize my team members. Okay, so most of you have actually said birthday celebration is not a form of appreciation, and actually this is the wrong answer. The right answer is none of the above. And why is this a form of appreciation? Because when you're celebrating an employee's birthday, you are telling them that you are valued. We are actually taking out our time. Forget how much money is spent on that birthday cake or a gift, but we're taking out time to track your birthday and make sure that you're wished because you mean something to us, you are valuable to us. So thank you so much for that. Mridul, the next question to you, and you spoke a lot about behaviors. And it's obviously so much easier to track results and to measure results and give awards on the basis of results. It's also so much easier to justify to someone what the person's achievement was. But you have a huge focus on behaviors. Tell us a little more about this.
Sure. So I said, when we were designing a program, we wanted to create a culture of appreciation, right? A culture gets created when there is a perceptible and measurable change in behavior, and you can look at what was the focus that you wanted to bring, what sort of behavior you wanted to highlight and develop, and is it something that is actually getting highlighted and therefore building. So in our ecosystem, when we look at our drive values, we essentially, since we are moving into a space of being a digital ecosystem enabler, there is a lot of cross-functional work that's happening. There's a lot of innovative product and process and services that we are creating, which requires each function to work very effectively across other functions. And it also requires a lot of innovative work to happen. So when we actually want a transformation in that direction, what we expect employees to start demonstrating is those behaviors, right? And we want the person who is recognizing and appreciating, when they send out a recognition, they should be able to highlight what behavior the employee has demonstrated. And therefore, when those behaviors are getting demonstrated, others are observing and able to understand that these are the behaviors that I need to demonstrate so that I also get recognized, right? Now, the intent is not to get recognized. The intent there is that what is it that is important? How is the manager or the leadership or my peers looking at, my contribution and value add? And everything at the end of the day as a result comes out when you actually implement or you demonstrate a behavior, right? We can go down to performance, we can go down to managerial effectiveness. I'll give you another example. When we recently did an analysis of attrition, we figured out within a leader, there were two different managers. One manager had significant attrition, the other manager had very little attrition comparably, right? So we wanted to deep dive and figure out what is the difference between the two. Is it the manager's ability to communicate, or is it the manager's ability to allocate work effectively? What is the difference between the two? When we finally boiled down to the root cause, we figured out that one of the manager was very, very effective in how he recognizes the entire team, right? So instantaneous recognition, very transparent, not very strict in terms of practicing recognition as a program, and so on and so forth. The other manager was effective in terms of everything else, but was very, very strict in terms of recognition. His expectations were very high. He was not looking at small opportunity where he can encourage the team. The encouragement actually goes a long way and actually helps in not just sustaining but also transforming behaviors. It is not about the individual who is getting recognized, because the others are observing, they also start following the same pattern of behavior. So that's why the importance of measuring behavior and aligning the entire program to behaviors alone, right? And then the outcome automatically gets taken care of. So through this, we have figured out that what we want to measure, and I'll also respond to your last question on why it is moderate. It is about behavior when I respond to that question. But through this, we have figured out that when we are measuring the right behavior, we are actually promoting it. Whatever gets focused actually enhances. So if you are focusing on cross-functional collaboration, it is something which is continuously improving. Our results through various measurement tools that we use, ESAT, which is a globally measured tool, or we do NPS, on all those, our scores have been continuously going up, right? And we are able to figure out that certain behaviors are forming base for our business growth, and certain behaviors that we actually want further focus on. So we keep, year to year, we keep shifting based on the strategy of the organization, what behavior needs to be in focus in a particular year, and we bring that element into the entire recognition program so that managers are able to then articulate and push for those behaviors to be demonstrated. So that's how the whole program is designed.
Amazing. And I loved what Mridul spoke about when he said micro behaviors must be recognized. A lot of times we're always waiting for that one big moment, one big success, and success takes time. There are also a lot of vagaries, there's a lot of dependencies, etc. And which is where, again, just focusing on results means A, that your recognition is going to be delayed, it's not going to be timely, it's not when the actions were performed or those behaviors were demonstrated. And the second is that if you're constantly looking for these large success stories, you're missing out these micro behaviors. That's possibly, again, where peer-to-peer recognition plays an important role, because even if the manager himself or herself is not noticing it, the peers are, and then the manager will see, oh, this team member of mine has got recognized so many times by their team members. There must be something that I need to look into a little further. So that's, again, something that comes out very, very beautifully. The important part here is that those behaviors must be aligned to what your organizational requirements are, what your business requires. It's also taking the entire part about recognition to the next level. Now, traditionally, recognition has been top-down. It's been about exclusivity. Whereas the modern take on recognition is about how can we make it more broad-based? How do we make sure that people feel empowered to kind of recognize each other, because that's what creates that culture of recognition or the culture of appreciation that Mridul was talking about. Going back to this, this was again very, very interesting. Some of you might have taken the obvious choice of incentivization, and you're absolutely right on that, in as much that there's no money being exchanged. Maybe there's a little bit of emotional value for Mridul when we thank him like this. But the answer I was looking for was reinforcement. Because over here, well done, Mridul, your session was very good, tells us nothing about what is it that Mridul did during that session that was appreciated by us, that we found valuable. And this is again very interesting. He spoke about the messaging, the award messaging that goes out, how personalized is it. He gave a lovely example about someone who had preserved this message from their manager for so many years. I remember the first time I was a fresher, first job, I got just an appreciative email from my manager, and I was so thrilled. The first thing I did was take it home, showed it to my parents. Now, we often undervalue some of these things. In fact, the average length of a citation, as we measured on our platform, this is real practice, was 42 characters. 42 characters is even shorter than this. This itself is 45 characters. So that's where a lot of work needs to be done on helping people understand why they should write more meaningful messages. The other part that I think Mridul touched upon, which I loved, Mridul, was the part about typically communication around compensation, around bonuses. This is one-on-one. I can be telling him, but we in fact tell people, please do not talk about this to others. But recognition is something that should be spoken about. So it's not just the person who's getting recognized, who's getting impacted, or who's seeing what it is all about, but everyone else who's privy to the recognition announcement. Mridul, moving on from here, let's talk a little bit about the fact that you continue to focus on award events. There is a lot of leadership push that happens towards recognition. So clearly you are trying to build on the social and the emotional value as well. What was the thinking over here? How did this practice evolve?
Okay, so before that, I think I missed pointing out one aspect of building a culture of recognition, which I think a lot of organizations generally struggle with. This is about where the budget sits. It sits with functions, it sits with corporate, how does the spend gets controlled, and all that becomes an impediment to implement a culture of recognition. In our organization, we had significant leadership support when we discussed about implementing a recognition program that enables a culture. And thereby we decided that we will not define a budget for recognition because we wanted all employees to participate. If they want to recognize somebody, they should not be limited by availability of budget, approvals, and things like that. If they feel that somebody has actually added value, contributed to their success or to the team's success, they should be in a position to recognize. Believe me, initial apprehensions were always there that this could get misutilized. But over the years, we have seen that people are generally very, very conscious of what they are recognizing, how they are recognizing, because it's all visible, right? First of all. Secondly, what behaviors are they identifying and recognizing, and is that aligned to the organization objectives? And thirdly, the consumption of budget actually comes from the person who is being recognized, not the recognizer. So we have actually, what we have done is we have allowed the employees, the managers to recognize cross-functionally, and the person who is being recognized, his BU is charged for the budget. So that's how it actually encourages everyone and anyone to send out a recognition, right? So that's how, but the budget utilization over the years has been percentages increases keeping pace with the growth of the organization. It has not become a problem for us. Now, while we decided to have a much larger framework around the recognition, I think when we launched with the previous platform supplier, we made a good progress. We had a good journey, and we could actually look at implementing a program which is accessible globally. But then we shifted to Vantage Circle for reasons like Vantage Circles gives us a platform which enables global reach. It enables gamification, and it also allows multiple other things. For example, you can utilize the platform for various other recognition, which is top down. If the CEO wants to send out a thank you note to the entire organization, it can easily be configured and send out. So various things that we could do through Vantage Circle. The whole idea of continuing with offline recognition ceremonies and other thing was to give it a much larger visibility. So if the recognition is happening within a function, it is not getting the kind of publicity you want the employee to have across the organization. So to improve visibility, we don't just do it during our town hall meetings or all. We also do it along with the clients. When the client comes and we have a ceremony with the client, we bring the best performers, and the choice of those people who are in front of the client is again coming out from the platform only. So we look at who has contributed the best. There's also a gamified system where we ask employees to vote which recognition you think has added the maximum value, and that kind of creates a huge amount of visibility. In fact, the employee who gets the maximum vote, he's the happiest person all across. It doesn't matter what was the quantity of money that came to him through that recognition. It's the vote of other employees, the appreciation that he get through that, which matters the most. And through that we choose who is the winner at the end of the day, and we present that in front of the client or in front of the leadership, which makes a huge impact for the employee's moral and motivation. So that's why we implemented this kind of framework.
You can have the next audience poll questions, the last question, and I'll also have the last question from Mridul ready.
A quick time check. We'll have about 1 minute, please.
So very quickly on this, would love to get your poll responses on this. In the meantime, Mridul, I think all of us have been waiting for this. You've told us some amazing aspects of the program. Tell us more about why is it a moderate effectiveness in your mind?
Okay, so I debated a lot before responding to this question. We set very high standard and benchmark for any process and initiative that we run in the organization. This is running for last 8 to 10 years, and it has brought a lot of good results for us. If I look at the employee perception on the program, it is at an all-time high benchmark against the best in the world, and we are up there. Against all the behavior that we were trying to measure, it is all positive and it's going up. But from time to time, the organization changes gear and looks at what is the next, what next behavior we need to measure. So in our own analysis of the program, when we looked at what is getting recognized in the organization today, most of the thing that we found was responsiveness, collaboration, and there was some element of ownership and all that was getting recognized. However, the organizations, it is shifting gears. It is looking at accountability. It is looking at cross-functional collaboration. It is looking at innovation. So, and this we have implemented about a year and a half back. We are still way off from seeing those behavior getting recognized. More and more recognition should be in those areas for it to transition. So, how quickly we move there and how we make it more meaningful from an employee behavior change perspective is something that we want to look at. That's why it is moderate, not by any other yardsticks. Productivity is high, performance of the company is high, employee satisfaction scores high, all that what generally you measure for an effectiveness of an employee recognition program, they're all there positive. But since we measure behavior and behavior linked to the business objectives, we continue to say that we are at a moderate level right now. Hope that explains.
That does. Thank you so much, Mridul. Very quickly responding to this one, having a leaderboard is the incorrect answer because when you have a leaderboard, again, people get to see their name up there. There is competition, and that starts driving up social and emotional value. Enabling external sharing is again incorrect because external sharing again means now I'm getting recognized not just within my organization, but I can share it with others outside. In fact, we've seen increasingly people adding their recognitions to their LinkedIn, posting it on LinkedIn. The right answer is doubling the award value because that's purely looking at the financial value. So thank you so much, Mridul, for that. Do we have time for Q&A?
Sorry, not really.
I'll
be.
She has a question in between.
No, yes, please. Okay, please go ahead.
Research on coming up with that framework. What is the ideal reward percentage an organization should have? What is the penetration percentage of the rewards program in an organization?
It's a lovely question. Do you want to respond first?
I'm not sure if you like my answer, but I think it's a wrong way of looking at building a culture. We should start by defining what is it that you are anchoring your recognition program on. Is it about organization culture change? Is it about building an outcome that you are looking at driving at that point in time? See, the whole utilization piece, to my mind, should be kept outside the framework, because if your focus is on getting the behavior change driven, then the utilization will not go up. It will not be something that you cannot manage. It is always, and this is, I'm talking from my last 8 years of experience, it has always taken care of it on its own. The growth of the organization is always faster than the growth at which the utilization goes up. It's always, if the program is implemented properly.
So, and I'll share my 2 cents. First, I'll share some data with you. So on our platform, the average percentage of employees getting recognized is 15% quarter on quarter. I would agree with Mridul that it's possibly not the right thing to measure in terms of success. But if you're looking for if there are problems with the program, I would say if less than 50% are getting recognized at least once, especially when you have non-monetary recognition, it's a problem. Because non-monetary recognition, you want it to be organization-wide. Shouldn't each person working in the organization feel recognized at least once every quarter? So based on that, I would say if you have less than 50%, you need to ask yourself, do people understand the program enough? Are they utilizing the program enough?
But would motivation remain the same for the performers then? Wouldn't you think it would go into a round-robin fashion where managers would say, I want to be a people's manager and I will recognize one by one everybody?
So that's a great question, and that's where the point about non-monetary recognition comes in. So non-monetary recognition, costs you nothing to do. Managers shouldn't hesitate. They needn't do that round robin because it's not as if they have a limited budget for it. And very importantly, what you can have is a leaderboard saying, okay, so and so has got recognized 50 times, so and so has got recognized 30 times. So you can have a special annual award for someone who is getting the maximum number of non-monetary recognitions.